Many of you know that Rosh Hashanah, a term that is nowhere in the Torah, the holiday is called Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance. It's called Yom Truah, the day of blowing of the shofar. But it is not called Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a rabbinic term that is given to the first of Tishri, which is today. And the rabbinic tradition has this legend that it was 5,775 years ago on Rosh Hashanah that the world was created. This holiday celebrates the anniversary of the creation of the world and the creation of Adam, male and female. Adam being the word that really means people kind, humanity. Most of us think Adam is Adam. And by the way, later in the story, the man is named Adam. But at the beginning of the story, Adam is a word that simply means a human being. God creates the first Adam, male and female, in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis. Chapter 1 of the book of Genesis is this marvelous chapter which should be seen as for what it is. It is a prose poem. It's like every other poem. It has a refrain. It has a message. And the message of the first chapter of the book of Genesis has nothing to do with how the world was created. Nothing at all. It has to do with the quality of the world we live in. And if you remember, there is a refrain. I'm sure we've studied the book of Genesis so often. This is something it should come right out of you. The refrain is that the world is, a little louder, that the world is, good. Yes, exactly right. That is the refrain of this prose poem, chapter 1 of the book of Genesis, and anybody who tries to see more, you can do midrash on it forever, but not try to do a science lesson based on the first chapter of Genesis. The world is good. Every day God creates, and the refrain is, and God saw everything he had made, and God said it is, and God saw that it was good. Tov, 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 the Hebrew word for good. God creates everything in the first 6 days, and the very last thing God creates is Adam, male and female. And then the world is no longer good. The world becomes very good. Who thought of this great prose poem, the first chapter of the book of Genesis? That's the message. And when we read it, it just jumps out at us. It is in my mind, it is the singular greatest statement of Jewish faith. Jewish faith is not based on God. Jewish faith is based on this notion that we live in a good world no matter what we see, no matter how hard it is. The perspective, and we studied this on Slichot, is to bring a good eye to the world, meaning that you see the world for good. And you see people in the world for good. It's not that the Jew, by the way, is blind or ever lies. It's not a thoughtless Pollyanna quality. We understand there is a lot of suffering in life, and pain in life, and complexities to life, and challenges to life. But in the context of it is good, and we embrace life. If anybody asks, what is Judaism? Judaism is an embrace of life. And that's chapter 1. Good, 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 very good. And then we get to chapter 2. And the genius of Torah text, genius. It is only in chapter 2 that the first not good is ever identified in the Torah text. Everything is good until we get to one thing. And then the Torah says loud and clear, unequivocal, this is not good. Do some of you remember what it is that God says is not? The first negative, criticism, evil ever identified in the Torah. It is, I want one word. What's the word? Say it. Who said it? Loneliness. And the line is, I heard some of you say it, it is not good for a person to be alone. One could argue that's the most important verse in the entire book of Genesis. It is not good for a person to be alone. And in a very real sense, all of the Torah is commentary on how you help people vanquish loneliness. It's interesting, by the way, it also reflects something unique about the Jewish tradition, because it's said about the Adam in the Garden of Eden, where he has everything he could possibly, everybody thinks the Garden of Eden is just a place to be. But in the text, we understand that as wonderful as the Garden of Eden might be, in addition to the fact that it's boring, most Jews abhor boring. There's very little energy, very little going on, no creativity in the Garden of Eden. Very interesting. But if you remember the story, Adam comes to God and in essence says to God, this is one beautiful place, but I'm lonely. And other religious traditions wouldn't see it that way. Because, in fact, other religions would say Adam is not alone. Adam has God. If you have God, how could you be alone? See, that's the Jewish mindset. A person and God equals alone. It's such a profound Jewish mindset. Other religions say if you have God, you're never alone. No. Person, God, alone. There was that wonderful song when I was growing up in high school by Anthony Newley. Does anybody remember Anthony Newley? Who can I turn to? But it should have been whom can I turn to? Who can I turn to? Who can I turn to when nobody needs me? My heart wants to know, and so I must go where destiny leads me. And the idea is, as long as I have you, I'm okay. And then I saw the show, and I was stunned that Anthony Newley, the character he played, sings it to God. To God? I was sure he was singing it to some person that he loved. No, God. Person, God equals alone. It's all about finding meaning in relationships with other people. And the genius of the Jewish tradition says, you want to find God? You don't look for God. You find God in relationships to other people. Whatever you mean by God, the tradition says. And once a year, somehow I have to work in this line, because it's so Jewish. This line, I looked for my God I could not see. I looked for my soul, it eluded me. I looked for my brother, and I found all three. That's Jewishness in a nutshell. Look for one's brother, meant both literally and metaphorically, and you find all three. So Adam says to God, it's nice here, but I'm lonely. And the rest of the Torah is an attempt to teach us how to keep people from being alone. And all of us in this room know what loneliness is. We know what loneliness is. There is no human being on earth who is never or has never experienced loneliness in the way that Jewish tradition means it. And it's not about whether you're in a crowded room. It's not about whether you're in, an auditorium at West Hill High School on the high holidays. And you're surrounded by people. Doesn't matter you're surrounded by people or not. The Christian said, loneliness has to do with what's inside a person. A profound sense of loneliness, of being alone, of vulnerability, a feeling that one isn't seen, isn't appreciated, isn't cared for, a feeling that one is not understood, is taken for granted, a feeling of profound isolation and maybe alienation. And these are the themes, by the way, that have been written about by the poets and the novelists and the playwrights and the composers. They've all dealt with this theme of profound loneliness that alienates us from seeing a beautiful world and from relationships with other people whom we love. And all of us understand it, and we've heard, we've read it, we've heard, you talk about a crowded room. Do you know Some Enchanted Evening from the musical? Okay, very good. There are young people here, they don't know it. Some Enchanted Evening, you will see a stranger across a crowded room. End of the song. Run to her side. Make her your own. Or all through your life you may dream all alone. No one wants to dream alone. It's no fun to dream alone. It's lonely to dream alone. No one wants to be alone. And loneliness goes beyond just, I don't feel warm and fuzzy. Loneliness is a word that is expansive in its totality. It is about insecurity. It's about fear. It's about feeling that one is in a crowded room and everyone in the room is so together. They're so happy. They have someone. They're so self-assured. And the other reality of life that both the Jewish tradition understands and we understand. No one lives without some insecurities at times, more or less, at different times. Everybody has insecurities. Everyone has fears. Everyone worries, am I good enough? Am I good enough compared to whomever? Am I the only loser in the room? Everyone has those thoughts at one time or another, just a matter of degree. Or look at all the Yiddish tzuras I have to deal with. Look at all the pain and look at all the pains I have to deal with. And by the way, there are people in this room who are dealing with enormous pains of life, very often having to do with illness, either their own or the illness of people they love. And I'm in awe of people in this room for the way they care for the people they love and how frightening it is to worry about the health and the future of people we love. And it's so easy for those people to feel alone, that no one cares about their pain. No one appreciates what they're going through. That's loneliness. Loneliness is a divorce. And very often a person gets divorced, acts like, oh, everything's fine, but in the end, they're in a home alone. And there's no one to share with, as they have been used to. And if their children are, where's Shabbat? Very hard to celebrate Shabbat alone. And what about loss? And we intellectually understand it. But if a person loses a beloved, a lifelong companion, it could be a sibling, and of course if it's a spouse, a husband or a wife, and you've been a zug bashamayim, you've been a match made in heaven, you lived your whole life together, and then that person is gone, and the sense of loneliness is overwhelming. And do people understand? And do they reach out? And how does one get from here to there, from Monday to Tuesday to Friday to Shabbat? This is what the tradition is trying to say to us, when it's not good for people to be alone. And so the high holidays come. And they say to every one of us, you have a responsibility. And I'm even thinking to myself as I say this, you understand, the high holidays are the same theme every year. How do we find ways of viewing what it means to be a lovely, gentle, kind, compassionate, loving human being? That's all Judaism is about. How do you create lovely, gentle, sweet people who care for one another? And every high holidays we try to find just a different sort of way of looking at that. And the tradition gives us so many different ways to understand what does it mean to be a lovely, sweet, caring person. And by the way, this is of any age. We talked about the age as we began the service. It doesn't matter how old a person is in this room. How each of us is a lovely, caring, gentle person is at the essence of what life and being a human being is all about. And every year there's a different way of looking at it, just a little. And this is, the tradition says to us, it is not good for people to be alone, and therefore, there's a therefore. Every one of us has a responsibility to do all we can to help people we care about, other people, vanquish loneliness. We will help them in their loneliness endure, survive, and transcend. Our job is to help the people we love and the people we care about transcend and vanquish loneliness. And the question is, how? So here's the how. And it is a universal how, by the way. This is universal. There's one word. I offer it to you tonight. It is the word of these high holidays. How do you help other people conquer loneliness? With a hug. A hug. With an embrace. And a hug comes in many forms. Obviously, there's the physical embrace of a hug. And there is something so healing in being in the arms of another human being and to feel the warmth of their body hugging. One of the ways we truly help people not be alone is to embrace them with a physical, warm, loving hug. And it isn't about romantic hugging. By the way, romantic hugging has its place too. And the more you think about it, by the way, you understand why intimacy is so crucial at the bedrock of human nature as a way of transcending personal loneliness. But a hug doesn't have to be romantic at all. It's between parent and child. It's between grandparent and grandchild. It's between brother and brother and brother and sister and sister and sister. All family members. An embrace can be between friends. And if you ever walk in and you see an embrace, a real good embrace, it's amazing. You can't tell who the hugger is and who the huggy is. There is something so sweet about an honest, heartfelt hug. It is not only comforting, it is healing. By the way, there's scientific data now. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to get AARP literature. But AARP just came out with a study that found this, and I didn't make this up. A 10-second hug reduces blood pressure. Something about hormones and enzymes and chemicals and oxytocin, if you care. It stimulates oxytocin and it represses cortisol. I will take it on faith. Anyway, we know from personal experience how wonderful a hug can be. It is a way to conquer loneliness. It is a gift one can give another person. We don't hug enough. By the way, there were generations that were taught not to hug. And there are people today for whom a physical hug just isn't comfortable. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It's just not the way they were raised, and maybe it doesn't matter. They do less hugging. Not that they don't appreciate it. It just isn't who they are. And it's important to understand a hug comes in many different forms. There's something wonderful about the warmth of a real hug that says, I care about you, I see you, I will not let you be, you are never alone. A hug says, you're not alone. And when you think about this, just song titles come through my mind. So a hug is, you are always on my mind. You are never out of my mind. I have never forgotten you. I never take you for granted. I will always be there for you. A hug says that. But some people just aren't comfortable hugging. So lucky, there are other ways to hug. There is the verbal hug. There are ways in which words that are spoken to someone else are experienced as a profound emotional being wrapped and embraced. And again, it's something that tradition begs us to become more comfortable doing. It is amazing how stingy we are with verbal hugs. Every time we have a chance to say to somebody, you're wonderful. What you did was wonderful. I appreciate you. I care about you. I think of you all the time. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. You are the best. You are the best. And I think I mentioned this one other time, when you say to somebody, in English, best is a superlative. It's like unique is about as unique as you can be. So when somebody says, well, you're very unique. Linguists point out that's a redundancy. You can't be very unique. So what is this? You're the best, because It's okay to have more than one best. If we're lucky enough to have people we love, they are the best. If we're lucky enough to have beautiful children, every single one of them is the best. They're the best, and they should hear it all the time. You're the best. It's just the most honest thing we can say. You are the best. You have a wonderful friend. You're the best friend. And I love you. I will never let you alone. I will not let you be alone. I will take care of you. I will help you. All those words are so huggy. And given modern technology, there are so many ways to express a verbal hug. I mean, have you ever received a text and you look at the text and you just get chills, or you tear up, or you just want to kiss you? Am I the only one? Sometimes you get a text from somebody who says something so sweet. We should always text nice things. And sometimes we don't. Why? We text stupid things. There's emails for people who, don't know how to text. They email. You can put such nice things in an email that make people feel hugged and warm and loved and cared for. Why would we ever miss an opportunity? Why would anybody miss an opportunity to say or text or email something lovely to another person? And it's not, it doesn't mean we're sort of, what's the right thing? You're sort of, you gotta be strong. Strong is stupid. Sweet is good. Sweet. There's even, you can send a card. We did that last year. There was something used to be called a letter. You can send a letter. It comes in an envelope. You open it up. You read it. It says such nice things. You get goose pimples all over. It's a hug. I just got goose pimples. It's a hug. A beautiful letter. A beautiful note. We know it because it's happened to us. We've opened the letter. And we know what it means to us. And then everybody has a cell phone. Not everybody calls. A lot of people only use the cell phone for incoming calls. No. But you just dink. And somebody is going to say hello. And that's not true because now nobody answers the phone. So you do dink and you get voicemail. But you can leave such a lovely message. You can, right? Just leave a lovely message. And it's so easy to do. All of this is the verbal hug. And then there's the third kind of hug. Every act of kindness, every act of helping, every act that uplifts the other person, every act that shows how much we care is a hug. Every time there's someone in pain and we are there for them, even if it's only to say, I'm really sorry for your pain. And sometimes all one can do is just be there. That's a hug. There's a wonderful rabbinic story. It describes a child and a parent. It's the father in the story. And the child is trying to move a very large boulder. And the father is sitting off to the side watching his child struggle to move this boulder. Struggle and struggle and struggle to move the boulder. And finally, the father speaks. And the father says very gently to the son, are you using all your strength? The boy turns to his father, almost annoyed, and says, yes. And the father says, no, you're not. You haven't asked me for help. Being a lovely person is being both the child and the adult. Every one of us has to understand there are people ready to help us. They want to help us. They will be thrilled to help us if we're able to ask. And one of the things we must learn to do is to be able to ask for help. But it's a scary thing to do. And in essence, it's the father in the story that sets the model. Because what the father is basically saying is, ask me for help. I'm ready to help you. I will help you. And that's a hug. Every time we say to somebody, I understand there are mountains you have to move. Let me help you. It is an extraordinary act of hug. It's not enough sometimes to make the phone call. One has to be present. One has to visit. The tradition tells us, you visit the sick. And some people are afraid of hospitals or illness. It's something we try to transcend. Illness isn't catching. It is part of life. And if one can be with someone who is dealing with the illness of another, it is a gift. The invitation is a gift. And again, it doesn't matter what age one is, whether one is in 6th grade or starting out in life or in high school. One can always find a way to make a friend feel better, feel like that person is beloved and cared for and seen and not taken for granted and understood and appreciated, not neglected, not overlooked, not irrelevant. It's especially true of how those of us with older parents treat our older parents. It is frightening to begin to really deal with the ravages of older age or with the loss of a beloved that comes with the older age. To be able to include parents, to include grandparents, wherever and as often as possible. What a gift and what a hug. This is what the high holidays ask us to do this year. They ask us to find ways to physically embrace wherever we can, to express the verbal hug, you're wonderful. Thank you. You're the best. And to perform every act of caring and assistance and presence that we possibly can to every person we care about, every person we love. That's the essence of what the tradition is saying. It is not good for any human being to be alone. Now go figure out how to help people conquer the loneliness. And the best way to conquer loneliness is to have what the tradition calls in chapter 2, an Azer. You remember God, Adam comes to God and says, I'm lonely. He says, it's not good for man to be alone. And ultimately, God creates for the Adam, an Isha, an Azer, a helpmeet, a companion. It is always wonderful if one can find and then live with forever a life's companion. But even an Azer doesn't mean an individual is free of existential loneliness. The Azer helps. And sometimes it's very hard to find an Azer. And sometimes we lose an Azer. Our job is to be there for every person, wherever we can. They should never be alone. And so I offer that to you as this year's idea. And then I had a problem. What do I put up on the stage? So I'm going to ask the two of you to bring out this year's, what I offer to you as the symbol for this year. I wanted a depiction of the hug. The problem is, it can't be, in my mind, too specific. In other words, it can't be, a husband and wife hugging, because that has all kind of romantic overtones that I didn't mean to don't turn it over yet, just hold it. I didn't, I looked at 1 billion pictures trying to find one that would say, don't turn it over yet. And by the way, there are 1 million pictures. If you put hug, if you Google hug, 5 million, trillion, gazillion pictures of, two people. But then it's about those two people. It occurred to me as I was thinking of this, what was once much more true. Our kids are older now. And so, life changes. When we were younger, at one point there were 5 kids, even before there were 7. There were 5 of us before there were 7. There were 3 kids. And every now and then Dara, and then Ari, and then there would be something called a family hug, which I had not totally forgotten about. A lot of and anyone in the family could call family hug, and then it was like a huddle where everybody would be hugging each other. And my guess is, it was something similar in many of your families as well, the family hug. So maybe I could find a family hug, but then it's about a family hug. What about 2 guys? 1,000,000 2 gals? No, not exactly right. Okay, how about a grandparent and a grandchild? No, that's too specific. It's too limiting. How about a little kid with a bear? A lot of animated pictures of little children being hugged by animals. How about an animal hug? No, that's crazy. That only happens in a Disney movie. And there are gazillion hugs in Disney movies. And then there's a movie right now, Frozen. Oh, there's 1 million hugging pictures of Frozen. But it's Frozen. No. I needed, what I've tried to do, is find a representation of a hug. Not a real hug. But when you look at it, I'm hoping you see, oh yes, that's any hug. Here is my any hug for us this year. Is that sweet? And one of the things I love is, who initiated that hug? You can't tell. Who's the hugger and who's the hugging? You can't tell. Is it male? Is it female? What's the age? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's about, is the essence that is being conveyed in that depiction, does it resonate? I'm hoping that with many of you it does. And that what this year becomes for us is a year where all of us do everything we can to hug more with a physical warm embrace, in word and in deed, that no one we know and care about will ever have to deal with loneliness again. And we all say, Amen.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.